The transport ship shook as it entered the docking bay of Station Helix 9. Inside, 13 human cadets sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the small windows that showed them their new home for the next 3 years. The Galactic Military Academy floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower, its many arms reaching out in all directions. It was the most famous military school in the known universe, and for the first time in its 800-year history, it had accepted humans. Yuna sat in the back corner of the transport. She was small, even by human standards. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her face showed no emotion as she watched the station grow larger. The other human cadets whispered nervously to each other, but Yuna stayed quiet. She had been quiet for most of her life. "Can you believe we're actually here?" said Taewoo, the young man sitting next to her. He was tall and loud, with a smile that never seemed to leave his face. He had decided on the first day of their journey that Yuna would be his friend, whether she wanted it or not. "My grandmother cried when I told her. She said humans would never be accepted by the aliens. But look at us now." Yuna nodded, but said nothing. The transport landed with a soft bump, and the doors opened. Immediately, the human cadets felt small. The docking bay was enormous, built for species much larger than them, and standing in rows to greet them were those species. Tall reptilian Drayan warriors with scales like armor and teeth like knives. Elegant Silthian beings who seemed to be made of light and shadow. Massive Kelvorian soldiers with 4 arms and skin like stone. And dozens of others, all watching the humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to disgust. A Drayan stepped forward. He was the largest being Yuna had ever seen, standing nearly 3 meters tall. His scales were dark green, and scars covered his face and arms. His eyes were golden and cold. "I am Instructor Velok," he said. His voice was deep enough to shake bones. "I have trained warriors for 400 years. I have shaped the greatest soldiers in the Confederation." He looked at the humans like they were insects. "And now I am told to train you, Earthborn, soft-skinned, short-lived, weak." None of the humans spoke. Some of them could not even meet his eyes. Velok walked closer. He stopped in front of Taewoo, who was trying very hard to keep smiling. "You," Velok said. "How much can you lift?" About 80 kilograms, sir," Taewoo answered. Velok made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then with one hand, he grabbed Taewoo by the front of his uniform and lifted him into the air like he weighed nothing. 80 kilograms, Velok repeated, holding Taewoo up for everyone to see. "A Drain child can lift 300. Your species is an evolutionary accident. You have no claws, no armor, no venom. You cannot see in the dark. You cannot breathe underwater. You live for less than a century, and you spend most of that time sleeping." He dropped Taewoo, who stumbled but managed to stay on his feet. "I do not know why the Confederation has decided to give you a chance, but I will not lower my standards. Those of you who survive the training will earn your place. The rest will go home in shame, or in boxes." The other alien cadets laughed. It was not a kind sound. Yuna watched all of this with calm eyes. She did not flinch when Velok's gaze passed over her. She did not react when a Silthian cadet pointed at her and whispered something that made his friends laugh louder. She simply observed and remembered. The orientation ceremony was long and humiliating. The humans were made to stand, while speaker after speaker talked about the honor being given to their primitive species. They were shown their quarters, which were small and far from the main facilities. They were given their schedules, which were twice as demanding as those of other first-year cadets. "They want us to fail," said Hana, another human cadet. She was from the same region as Yuna, but they had never spoken. Hana was tall and athletic, one of the strongest humans in the group. She looked at Yuna with something like anger. "And with some of us, they won't have to wait long. You could barely carry your own bag off the transport. How are you supposed to complete combat training? Yuna looked at her. I will complete it. How? You're tiny, you're weak, I will complete it, Yuna repeated. Then she walked away. That night, after the other cadets had gone to sleep, Yuna made her way to the observation deck. It was a large room with windows that showed the endless stars. She found a quiet corner and sat down, pulling her knees to her chest. In the distance, barely visible among the millions of stars, was a small yellow light. Sol, Earth's sun, her home. She sat there for hours, not moving, barely breathing, just watching. An academy worker passed by on his patrol and noticed her. He checked his datapad, pulling up her file. What he saw made him frown. Name, Yuna. Species, human. Earthborn. Age, 24 standard years. Physical assessment, below minimum standards. Waiver granted. Mental assessment, unremarkable. Special notes, clearance level, restricted. Earth Federation Special Directive 7. The workers stared at the last line. Restricted? A human? That had to be a mistake. Some kind of bureaucratic error. What could a weak, ordinary human possibly have that needed to be restricted? He shrugged and continued his patrol. It was not his problem. Alone in the observation deck, Yuna finally spoke. Her voice was soft, barely louder than a whisper. 3 years, she said to the distant star. I can wait 3 years. Then she closed her eyes and began to plan. Somewhere deep in the station's computer system, her identity file sat in its encrypted folder. It had been opened once before, by someone very important, and someday soon, it would be opened again. But until that day, Yuna would be exactly what everyone expected her to be, the weakest cadet in the Academy's history. The joke, the embarrassment, the proof that humans did not belong among the stars. She smiled in the darkness. It was not a warm smile. Let them laugh, she thought. Let them all laugh. 6 months passed at the Academy, and the humans learned what it meant to suffer. Every morning began at 400 hours with physical training. The cadets ran through corridors designed for beings with longer legs. They climbed walls built for creatures with claws. They swam through pools filled with water so cold that human skin turned blue. And every single day, the humans finished last. Yuna finished last among the humans. The obstacle course was the worst. It was a nightmare of spinning platforms, rising walls, and gaps that required jumping 3 meters or more. The Drayan cadets finished it in under 4 minutes. The Kelvorians, despite their size, completed it in 5. Most humans needed 15 minutes or more. Yuna needed 47 minutes. She fell from the climbing wall 6 times. She missed the jumping platforms and dropped into the safety net below, over and over. Her arms shook so badly by the end that she could barely pull herself up the final rope. But she finished. She always finished. Instructor Velok used her as an example in every class. Look at the Earthborn, he would say, pointing at Yuna with one clawed finger. This is what happens when politics decides who enters the Academy instead of merit. This is why quotas for primitive species damage everything we have built. The alien cadets laughed every time. The other humans began to avoid Yuna. They sat away from her in the dining hall. They did not invite her to their study groups. Even Hana, who usually kept her thoughts private, spoke openly about her frustration. You make us all look bad, Hana said one night. Every time you fall, every time you fail, they look at you and they see all of us. They see all of humanity. Why are you even here? Why don't you just quit? I will not quit, Yuna said. What's the point? Yuna did not answer. She simply returned to her studies, reading a datapad filled with information about alien biology that no first-year cadet should have been able to understand. Only Taewoo stayed loyal. He sat with Yuna at meals, studied with her in the evenings, and defended her when others spoke badly about her. I don't get you, he said one night, as they sat together in the empty library. "You never complain. You never get angry. They treat you like dirt, and you just take it." Yuna looked at him. "There is a saying where I come from, a nail that sticks up gets hammered down." "So you're hiding? Pretending to be small so no one notices you?" "I am not pretending anything," Yuna said. "I am exactly what they see." Taewoo did not believe her, but he had no proof of anything else. The mental training was different from the physical training. Instructor Myrel, a Sylthian who seemed to be made of silver light and whispers, taught the cadets how to resist psychic attacks. Most species in the Confederation had natural mental shields. Humans did not. "Your minds are open books," Myrel explained, her voice like music and wind. "Any psychic can read your thoughts, control your emotions, drive you to madness. This is why humans have always been considered inferior. You have no defense against the most basic mental warfare." One by one she tested each cadet, reaching into their minds to measure their resistance. The Drain cadets barely flinched. The Calvorians simply ignored her. Even the other humans managed to put up weak barriers. Then she reached for Yuna. Myrel's eyes went wide. She pulled back her hand as if she had touched fire. For a moment, she looked afraid. What are you?" Myrel whispered. The other cadets turned to look. "I am human," Yuna said calmly. No. There was nothing there. Not resistance, not thought, not emotion. Nothing. It was like reaching into empty space. Yuna shrugged. "Maybe my mind is just very boring." The class laughed, but Myrel did not laugh with them. After class, she went directly to the academy director. "There is something wrong with that human," she said. "I have probed the minds of 1,000 species. I have never felt anything like that. It was like trying to touch a void, a perfect emptiness." The director reviewed Yuna's file. He saw the same restricted note that the worker had seen months ago. He tried to access it, and found that he did not have clearance. "It is probably nothing," he said finally. "She is the weakest cadet in the academy. What threat could she possibly be?" Myrel was not convinced, but she had no proof of anything wrong, so she said nothing more. The tactical simulations were the one place where humans could compete. Strategy did not require strength or claws. It required only a mind that could plan, adapt, and predict. The cadets were divided into teams and given scenarios. Defend this planet, attack that station, rescue these hostages. Points were awarded for success and taken away for casualties. Yuna was always picked last. She was always placed in support roles, handling communications or supply management. No one expected anything from her. But her teams consistently won. No one noticed that she was the one who suggested flanking maneuvers that the enemy never expected. No one realized that her quiet comments about maybe moving the reserve unit here often turned defeats into victories. She never took credit. She never spoke up. She simply helped, and let others think they had won on their own. One night, Taewoo found her writing in a small book. The symbols inside were strange, unlike any language he had ever seen. "What is that?" he asked. Yuna closed the book. "Just notes. In what language?" "One I made up, when I was young." "You made up a language? Why?" Yuna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Because some thoughts should not be easy to read. Taewoo wanted to ask more questions, but something in her eyes told him to stop. So he changed the subject, and they talked about easier things until the lights went out. That night, while Yuna slept, a maintenance drone passed through the cadet quarters on its regular route. It scanned the room, checking for safety violations. When it scanned Yuna's wrist, it detected the simple bracelet she always wore. Most cadets wore jewelry from home. It was allowed. But this bracelet triggered something in the drone's programming. A security alert was generated and sent directly to Galactic High Command, bypassing the Academy entirely. The message traveled through space at faster than light speeds. It would reach its destination in seconds. but it never arrived. Someone inside the academy intercepted the alert and deleted it. Someone who knew exactly what that bracelet meant and did not want anyone else to find out. In her bed, Yuna's eyes opened for just a moment. She touched the bracelet, felt its familiar weight on her wrist, and smiled. Then she closed her eyes and went back to sleep. The game was changing, and soon, very soon, everyone would learn the rules. At the end of their first year, the Academy announced a joint exercise with military schools from across the Confederation. 500 cadets from 12 species would compete in a massive planetary assault simulation. Teams would be randomly assigned. There would be no special treatment. Yuna was placed on a team with 7 alien cadets who made no effort to hide their disgust. A drain named Korath was the team leader. He looked at Yuna like she was a disease. "The human stays in the rear," Korath announced. "She guards the supply point. If she tries to join the assault, she will only slow us down." Yuna nodded. Understood. The simulation planet was a rocky wasteland, with canyons, caves, and an enemy command center hidden somewhere in the mountains. Each team had to capture enemy territory while defending their own. Points were awarded for objectives completed. Deaths in the simulation meant removal from the exercise. Korath led the team forward aggressively, leaving Yuna alone at the supply point, with nothing but a communication device and a standard sidearm. She watched them go, their figures growing smaller against the red sky. 20 minutes into the exercise, the enemy found them. Yuna listened through her communication device as Korath's team was ambushed. One by one, her teammates were eliminated. Korath himself was the last to fall, taken down by 3 enemy cadets who had circled behind him. "The Earthborn is alone at the supply point," one of the enemy said, laughing. "Should we even bother?" "Leave her. She will be eliminated when the time runs out. There is no honor in hunting such weak prey." Yuna heard every word. She turned off the communication device and looked at the mountains in the distance. According to the mission briefing, the enemy command center was protected by the best cadets from 3 different academies. It had never been captured in 20 years of joint exercises. She began to walk. The path she chose was not on any map. It wound through narrow gaps in the rock that larger species could not fit through. It climbed steep cliffs that would have been impossible without handholds only human-sized fingers could use. It took her through caves so dark that she had to feel her way by touch alone. 6 hours later, covered in dust and scratches, Yuna reached the enemy command center from above. The defenders were watching the main approaches. They had sensors covering every logical route. But no one had thought to watch the tiny crack in the ceiling, barely wide enough for a small human to squeeze through. Yuna dropped into the center of the room. For a moment, no one moved. 12 elite cadets stared at the small, dirty human who had appeared out of nowhere. One of them started to laugh. Then Yuna moved. She was not fast. She was not strong. But she knew exactly where every control panel was. She had memorized the layout from the briefing materials that most cadets had not bothered to read carefully. While the defenders were still trying to understand what was happening, she reached the main communication array and disabled it with 3 precise strikes. The enemy teams across the entire simulation planet lost contact with their command. Without coordination, they fell into chaos. Korath's team won. They earned more points than any team in the history of the joint exercise. When the simulation ended, Korath found Yuna walking out of the mountains alone. He did not know how to look at her. "How?" was all he could say. "I walked," Yuna answered. "No one watches the paths that are too difficult." She said nothing more, but from that day on, Korath never called her weak again. The instructors noticed. For the first time, they began to watch Yuna more carefully. Instructor Myrel reviewed Yuna's performance data from the simulation. What she found disturbed her. Yuna's decision-making patterns, the way she calculated risk and chose routes, did not match any human psychological profile. They matched something else entirely. These patterns, Myrelle said to herself, staring at the data, they are like military AI protocols, but those programs were destroyed centuries ago. She marked the file for further investigation. But before she could do anything more, a message arrived from Galactic High Command. A senator would be visiting the Academy for a surprise inspection. All resources were to be directed to preparing for his arrival. Yuna's file was forgotten. Instructor Velok, meanwhile, had become curious. He told himself it was professional interest. He told himself he simply wanted to understand how a human had accomplished what Yuna had accomplished. But the truth was, she had surprised him. And Velok did not like surprises. "Human," he called to her one day after training, "come with me." He led her to a private training room. The walls were covered with ancient weapons, and the floor was marked with circles for combat. "I propose a cultural exchange," Velok said, "a sparring match. I will not injure you. I simply wish to see how humans fight. Consider it educational." Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I accept." They took positions in the center circle. Velok did not even take a fighting stance. He simply stood there, waiting, confident that this would be over in seconds. Yuna attacked. She was slow. She was weak. Velok blocked her strikes easily, barely moving. He pushed her back, knocked her down, watched her get up again. It was almost sad. But as the match continued, Velok began to frown. Her movements were wrong. Not wrong as in clumsy, wrong as in familiar. The way she deflected his strikes, the angles she used to protect herself, the footwork that kept her moving just out of his reach. He knew these techniques. They were Drayan techniques, Ghost War techniques. Movements that had been forbidden and erased from all records 200 years ago, after a war so terrible that both sides agreed to forget it had ever happened. Velok stopped the match. He grabbed Yuna by the arm, not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to show he was serious. "Where did you learn those?" he demanded. Yuna looked up at him with calm eyes, and for the first time, she smiled. Not the polite smile she showed to instructors. Not the empty smile she gave to other cadets. A real smile. "I read it somewhere," she said. Before Velok could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the academy. The senator had arrived early. All instructors were required to report to the main hall immediately. Velok released Yuna's arm. He wanted to question her more, but duty called. He walked toward the door, then stopped. "This is not over, human," he said without turning around. "No," Yuna agreed. "It is not." The senator was an old man, thin and pale, from a species Yuna did not recognize. He walked through the academy with eyes that missed nothing, asking questions that seemed simple, but were not. Then he asked to meet the restricted human. The academy director was confused. "There is no restricted human, Senator. Our human cadets are—" "Her name is Yuna," the senator interrupted. "I will see her now. Alone." The meeting lasted 1 hour. No one knew what was said. But when the senator emerged, his face was the color of old paper, and his hands were shaking. He left the academy without completing his inspection. He sent no report. He contacted no one. 3 days later, he was found dead in his quarters. Natural causes, the official report said. That night, Taewoo found Yuna in her room, packing a small bag. "What are you doing?" he asked. Yuna did not stop packing. "They are going to try to kill me tomorrow," she said calmly. "Do not come to breakfast." "What? Who? Why would anyone?" "Taewoo." Yuna looked at him. There was something in her eyes that he had never seen before. Something old and cold and tired. You have been kind to me. I do not have many people I can say that about. So please, trust me. Do not come to breakfast. Stay in your room until the alarms stop." She finished packing and walked past him toward the door. "Yuna," Taewoo called after her. "Who are you, really?" She paused at the door. For a moment, she looked like she might answer. Then she was gone, disappearing into the dark corridors of the station, moving toward a destiny that had been waiting for her for 30 years. The attack came at dawn. 12 mercenaries breached the Academy's outer defenses, using codes that should have been impossible to obtain. They moved through the corridors like shadows, releasing gas that paralyzed anyone who breathed it. Cadets collapsed in their beds. Instructors fell at their posts. Within minutes, most of the Academy was unconscious. The mercenaries were not there for terrorism. They were not there for theft. They had one target, and they moved toward the human quarters with terrible purpose. Taewoo was not in his room. He had listened to Yuna. He had sealed his door and put on an emergency breathing mask. Through his window, he watched armed figures pass by, and his blood turned cold. They reached Yuna's room and broke down the door. It was empty. Her bed had not been slept in. Her belongings were gone. "Find her," the mercenary leader said. "She cannot have gone far." But Yuna was not hiding in the human quarters. She was not hiding anywhere. She was walking calmly through the deepest levels of the Academy, toward a place that should have been impossible for her to reach. The Central Vault. It was the most secure location in the entire Academy. It held classified artifacts, forbidden weapons, and secrets that could destroy civilizations. The door was protected by genetic locks, psychic scanners, and encryption that would take the best hackers in the galaxy years to break. The door opened for Yuna like it had been waiting for her. Inside, the vault was dark, except for a single light that fell on a pedestal in the center of the room. On the pedestal was a small crystal, no larger than a thumb, that glowed with soft blue light. Yuna walked toward it. She was not surprised. She had known this crystal was here. She had known for 30 years. Behind her, the vault door opened again. Instructor Velok stood in the doorway, his scales still wet from the gas he had walked through. He had been in his quarters when the attack began. He had fought his way through 3 mercenaries to reach the vault's location. His claws were covered in blood. "Human," he said, breathing hard. "What is happening? Who are those attackers? And how did you open this door?" Yuna did not turn around. "You should not be here, Instructor. It is not safe." "Nowhere in this academy is safe right now. Answer my questions." Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she touched the crystal on the pedestal. The room exploded with light. Holographic displays filled the air around them. Images and documents and video recordings from decades ago. And in the center of it all, a woman's face appeared. She looked like Yuna. She could have been Yuna's mother. "Authorization confirmed," a mechanical voice said. "Identity file unlocked. Welcome back, Commander." Velok stared at the displays. He saw military records, genetic modification reports, training footage of children, human children, doing things that should have been impossible, killing targets twice their size, memorizing entire databases in hours, surviving wounds that would have killed any normal being. What is this?" he whispered. The recording began to play. The woman who looked like Yuna spoke. "If you are watching this, then the Black Protocol has failed. Either we won the war and did not need you anymore, or we lost and you are the only one left. Either way, I am sorry. I am sorry for what we did to you. I am sorry for what we made you become." The woman's eyes, even in the recording, looked tired, broken. 30 years ago, humanity faced extinction. The Drayan Empire had decided we were too dangerous to exist. They sent their fleets to burn Earth. We had no weapons that could match them. We had no allies who would help. We were going to die. Velok remembered that war. He had been young then, just a soldier. He remembered how confidently the Empire had predicted victory, and he remembered how wrong they had been. So we created you, the Black Protocol Division, children selected for specific genetic traits and modified from the age of 6. Neural implants that gave you perfect memory and immunity to psychic intrusion. Training programs that taught you every fighting style, every strategic doctrine, every secret weakness of every species in the galaxy. You were not designed to be soldiers. Soldiers fight fair. You were designed to be something else. The woman paused. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. You were designed to be the knife in the dark, the poison in the cup, the friend who was never really a friend. You were designed to make humanity's enemies afraid to sleep, afraid to trust, afraid to ever threaten us again. The war ended, the woman continued. We won because our enemies no longer knew who to trust. Any human could be a Black Protocol agent. The gardener at the embassy, the servant in the palace, the small, weak, harmless human that no one would ever suspect. But you cannot turn weapons back into children. The Confederation demanded that the Black Protocol be destroyed, all records erased, all agents terminated. We agreed because we had no choice. The woman smiled sadly. But we lied. We hid one of you, the best of you. We gave her a new identity, a new life, and a mission that might never end. To wait, to watch, to be ready. The recording flickered. Her name is Yuna. And if you are seeing this message, then someone has decided that humanity needs to be afraid again. The recording ended. The light faded. Yuna finally turned to face Velok. She looked exactly the same as she always had. Small, weak, ordinary. But now he saw the truth behind her eyes. The void that Myrel had sensed. The emptiness that was not emptiness at all, but a fortress built from trauma and will and 30 years of waiting. The senator found out, Yuna said quietly. Someone in the Confederation discovered that Black Protocol agents might still exist. They killed him to keep it secret. And now they have sent these mercenaries to kill me. Why are you telling me this? Velok asked. I am Drain. My people tried to destroy yours. Yes, and you also trained me for the past year. You called me weak every day. You used me as an example of everything wrong with humanity. Yuna's voice was steady. But you also followed me here. You fought through the attackers to reach me. Why? Velok was silent for a long moment. Then he straightened his spine and met her eyes. Because you are my cadet, he said. I do not understand what you are, but I do not abandon those under my command, even the weak ones, even the ones I do not like. Yuna smiled. It was the first real smile Velok had ever seen from her. Then watch, she said, and learn why humans are terrifying. The vault door burst open. 12 mercenaries flooded into the room, weapons raised. They saw the old Drayan warrior and the small human girl, and they saw easy targets. They were wrong. What happened next took 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Later, when the security recordings were reviewed, the analysts would watch it over and over, trying to understand what they were seeing. Yuna did not fight like a warrior. She used the vault's environmental controls, triggering systems she had memorized on her first day at the academy. Lights flickered. Gravity shifted. Doors opened and closed at exactly the right moments. She knew pressure points on 6 different species. She knew which joints bent the wrong way, and which nerves could cause temporary paralysis. She used a pen from her pocket to disable the first mercenary, driving it into a gap in his armor that should have been impossible to find in the dark. Velok fought beside her, but mostly he watched. He had never seen anything like this. She was not faster than the mercenaries, she was not stronger, but she was always in the right place at the right time. She never wasted a movement. She never hesitated. When it was over, 12 elite killers lay on the floor, unconscious or groaning. Yuna stood in the center of them, breathing hard, the pen still in her hand. There was blood on her face, but none of it was hers. The crystal on the pedestal glowed again. A final message began to play. A different voice this time. Older, male, speaking directly to whoever might find this place. To whoever finds this, we created monsters to save ourselves. Yuna is the last. She carries the sins of our desperation and the key to our salvation. The Confederation fears humanity. They should. Not because we are strong, because we remember, and we never ever stop. Velok looked at the small human standing among her defeated enemies. For the first time in 400 years, Instructor Velok felt something he had almost forgotten. 6 months had passed since the night of blood in the vault. The Galactic Confederation was in chaos. The assassination attempt had been traced to a secret coalition of species who feared humanity's potential. They had seen the signs. They had watched the humans adapt too quickly, learn too fast, survive too well. They had decided to destroy the threat before it could grow. They had failed. The existence of the Black Protocol was now public knowledge. Every species in the Confederation now knew that 30 years ago, humanity had created perfect infiltrators, perfect spies, perfect killers, and one of them was still alive. Some voices demanded that humanity be expelled from the Confederation. Others demanded access to Black Protocol technology. Politicians argued and threatened and made speeches that changed nothing. In the Academy, life had changed forever. Instructor Velok stood before the Confederation's High Council, giving testimony that would be remembered for centuries. I have trained warriors for 400 years, he said. I have shaped the greatest soldiers in the galaxy. And I tell you now, I have never seen anything like her. Not because she is the deadliest, though she may well be, but because she made me believe she was the weakest. For an entire year, she stood before me, and I saw nothing but a pathetic creature to be mocked. That is mastery beyond anything I can teach. His golden eyes swept across the council. We laughed at humanity. We called them primitive. We said they had no natural weapons, no armor, no psychic abilities. We were fools. Their weapon is our own blindness. They show us what we expect to see, and we never look deeper. Instructor Myrell gave her own testimony. I sensed nothing in her mind, she admitted. I thought it was emptiness. I thought her mind was simply too weak to register. I was wrong. It was a fortress, built without psychic ability, built through pure will and pain and training that began when she was a child. Her silver form flickered with something like shame. Humans learn to build walls in their minds without any natural gift. They did it through trauma, through discipline, through refusing to break no matter how much they suffered. That is more terrifying than any psychic power I have ever encountered. The human cadets at the academy were no longer mocked. They were watched, studied, treated with careful respect that was very close to fear. Every instructor wondered if there were other Black Protocol agents hidden among them. Every cadet wondered if the quiet human next to them was something more. Taewoo had become Yuna's constant companion. He knew everything now. He had seen the recordings. He understood what she was, what she had been through, what she had sacrificed. Why did you tell me to stay in my room? He asked her one evening, as they sat in the observation deck, where she had once sat alone. You knew I would be safe, but you could have used my help. Yuna watched the distant stars. Because you are kind, she said simply, and I have known very few kind people. I did not want you to see what I had to do. What will you do now? Earth wants you back. The Confederation wants to use you. Everyone has plans for you. Yuna smiled. They always do. She had received offers from every major power in the galaxy. Earth's government wanted to bring her home, give her a new identity, let her disappear into a quiet life. The Confederation wanted her as a special consultant, a leashed weapon they could point at their enemies. She had refused them all. I want to finish my training, she had told the academy director. I want to graduate as a regular cadet, nothing more. He had stared at her like she was insane. You have nothing left to prove. You have demonstrated abilities beyond our best instructors. Why would you waste 2 more years here? Because I am tired of being a weapon, Yuna had answered. I have been a weapon since I was 6 years old. I want to be a student, just for a little while. I want to learn things because I choose to, not because someone programmed them into my mind. Is that so strange? It was strange. It was perhaps the strangest request anyone had ever made. But the director had agreed, because he was afraid to refuse her. The graduation ceremony came 2 years later. Yuna stood among her cohort in the great hall of the academy. Taewoo was beside her, grinning like always. Hana was on her other side, no longer hostile, no longer ashamed. Time and truth had changed many things between them. The human cadets had earned their place. They were not the strongest graduates. They were not the fastest. But they had proven that they belonged, and that was enough. Instructor Velok presented the certifications. When he reached Yuna, he paused. You graduated in the middle of your class, he said quietly. You could have been first, easily. Why did you hold back? Yuna accepted her certification and looked up at him with calm eyes. Because the lesson humanity needs the galaxy to learn is not that we can be the strongest, she said. It is that you will never know which of us is dangerous until it is too late. Every human you meet could be nobody, just a regular person living a regular life. Or they could be me. She tucked the certification under her arm. That uncertainty is our weapon, she finished. It always has been. Velok stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something he had never done for any cadet in 400 years of teaching. He bowed his head in respect. Humanity is fortunate to have you, he said. Humanity made me, Yuna replied. Whether that is fortunate or not depends on what we do next. After the ceremony, Yuna received her assignment. She would be posted to a remote space station on the edge of Confederation territory as a cultural attaché. It was a minor position, unimportant, the kind of job that no one would remember or care about. It was perfect. Taewoo walked with her to the transport bay. His own assignment would take him to the opposite side of the galaxy, to a military outpost where his skills would be needed. Will I see you again? He asked. Perhaps, Yuna said. The galaxy is large, but paths cross in unexpected ways. Will you be okay? Alone? Yuna smiled. It was a real smile, worn in a way that Taewoo had rarely seen. I have been alone most of my life, she said. But I have also learned that being alone does not mean being lonely. I have friends now. That is new for me, and I find that I like it. She put a hand on his arm. Thank you, Taewoo, for sitting with me when no one else would. For believing in me when I gave you no reason to. I will not forget. Then she turned and walked onto the transport without looking back. The space station was small and boring. Yuna's new colleagues were a mixed group or species who had been assigned there because no one wanted them anywhere else. They looked at the small human woman who arrived with one bag and no reputation, and they dismissed her immediately. She was quiet. She was polite. She did her job adequately, but not impressively. She ate lunch alone and spent her evenings reading in her quarters. She was exactly the kind of forgettable person that no one would ever think about twice. In her quarters, Yuna arranged her few possessions. a new journal with blank pages, a simple bracelet that she placed carefully on her wrist, and a small sign that she hung above her desk. The sign had 2 words on it, written in the language she had invented as a child. Humanity endures. She sat at her desk and opened the journal. She began to write, recording her observations of the station, its people, its routines, its weaknesses. Not because she planned to use the information, not because she had been ordered to, but because that was what she was, and she could not be anything else. Outside her window, the stars burned cold and eternal. Somewhere among them was Earth, the home she barely remembered. Somewhere among them were enemies who still feared what she represented. And somewhere among them were allies she had not yet met, friends she had not yet made, battles she had not yet fought. Yuna closed the journal and looked at the stars. She had been created to be a weapon. She had been designed to kill and deceive and destroy. But she had also chosen, again and again, to be something more. A student, a friend, a cadet who finished last and never gave up. The galaxy did not know what to make of humanity. They were weak and strong, simple and complex, terrifying and kind. They were contradictions wrapped in soft skin and short lives. And that, perhaps, was the most frightening thing of all. Because you could never be sure what a human was capable of, not until it was too late. Yuna smiled in the darkness of her quarters, surrounded by stars and secrets and the weight of 30 years of waiting. The game was not over. It was only just beginning. And humanity, as always, would endure.